great big print, which is why I have the glasses in case something else goes wrong. So first, thank you so much for the invitation, for the great introduction, Leslie, and thank you for Women of Influence and Deloitte for sponsoring the event. It really is an honor to be here, and it's actually very daunting as well. When I was first approached to present, I think my comment, and my executive assistant Kim can vouch for this, was kind of like, I don't know why you'd want me to come and talk. So after a few conversations, we decided, okay, I would come out. So I'm really thrilled to be here. I do want to make a comment about Deloitte, because I actually, in the role that I have today, my team leads the largest strategic partnerships that SAP has. So Deloitte is one of our very top partners. And they have an incredible reputation in the industry around diversity and advancing women. So to me, it's no surprise at all that Deloitte would sponsor this event, because I now sit on the Global Diversity Committee for SAP, and one of the companies that we really look up to and strive to emulate is Deloitte. So I just want to thank Deloitte for sponsoring this series of luncheons. Now, before I get started, I also have a quick Deloitte story, because we were talking about people in Deloitte that I work with, and last week SAP had our European User Conference in Madrid. We get about 10,000 people, so it's quite a large conference. And at the end of the conference, we always have a band. And this year, it was Supertramp, and Deloitte was the presenting sponsor. So because of Deloitte, we were actually able to bring Supertramp in. So can I ask in the room how many people have heard of Supertramp? Oh, okay. Because I was having these flashbacks to high school, and you probably won't know this car, but in my mom's Grand Le Mans sports coupe with the 8-track, and my girlfriend Michelle and I singing Dreamer at the top of our lungs driving down the street in Edmonton. So it was so much fun. The band was fantastic, and I was really having all these incredible flashbacks. So thanks again to Deloitte. So when I'm asked, and maybe when many of you are asked, what's made you successful, the first things that come to my mind is, well, I worked really hard, I had a really good team, and I got lucky. And a lot of you may think the same things, and if you know Sheryl Sandberg, Sheryl is the CEO of Facebook, or COO of Facebook, and she's made it a real mission for the advancement of women. She talks about that as well. She also says, in her experience, if you ask a man the same question, they say, well, because I'm awesome. So that's not typically what I say, and we can ask, there are a couple of men in the room, feel free to ask them at your table if that's how they would respond when asked why they've been successful. But I think we all know that while those things are important, there's also a lot of other things that make a difference, and so that's what I would like to talk about today. And I'm really thinking of them as lessons learned. So this is not going to be a complete list, and they're probably going to sound very obvious, or some of them at least are going to sound obvious to all of you. They're probably things that many of you do every day, because I know there's a lot of very successful women and men in this room. But to me, they're just thinking back about the last 30 years that I've been working and 20 years when I've been managing people and leading teams. These are the things that I've felt have made a difference in my career. These are also things I've seen other people do that has made a difference in their career, my observations, talking with colleagues. So that's what I'd like to share with you today. So the first one is leadership. And the way I would characterize it is every one of us is a leader. Everybody's a leader. Every day you walk in the door. It doesn't matter if you manage teams or you make big strategic decisions on behalf of your organization. You have the opportunity every day in your organization to come across like a leader. Now there's some really foundational things that need to be there. Things like taking ownership, delivering on commitments, doing the things you say you're going to do, being positive, being constructive, mentoring other people on your team. Those are all signs of leaders. And I do often get asked, because I mentor a number of young professionals in SAP and outside of SAP, well, I don't manage people today, so how can I show up? How can I be a leader? And that's things like the obvious, taking on projects in addition to the role that you have today, joining organizations, volunteering for things within your company, getting involved in the association that's relevant to the industry that you're in. For example, if you're in technology, being part of BCTIA here in Vancouver, it's about really getting out there and showing the capabilities that you have and why you are in a position and should be considered as you move forward in your career. So to me, that's a fundamental one. And when I worked for Crystal Decisions, just very briefly on my career, I worked for IBM for 16 years, and I've got a great friend here who went through basic training with me. So as I'm giving these lessons, I'm looking for Kelly not to be telling her 2 daughters, she never did that. But Crystal Decisions, I went then to Crystal Decisions, which was acquired by Business Objects, which was acquired by SAP, which is how I ended up here. But one of the values in Crystal was everyone is a leader. And so that really resonated with me, and that's one of the things that I think can make a difference in people's careers. The second is strategic thinking. And when I say strategic thinking in the technology industry, you might think that that's really understanding like where's the next Facebook, or how is social media going to evolve and be part of everybody's lives every day at work. And there certainly is that. But I'm a business commerce graduate, so that's not my strength. I understand how to use technology, I like technology, I understand the value to our customers and our partners. But to me, strategic thinking is really thinking on behalf of the company. It's really thinking about what's the bigger picture. And something that I picked up at IBM, and this really stuck with me for the last 20 plus years, was thinking about the customer first, the company second, your team and yourself third. And if you take that approach, if you've got a decision to make or a problem to solve, sometimes you don't have the ability to reach out to someone or have someone tell you what that decision should be. So if you think about it in that framework, that can really help you make some tough decisions. Now sometimes when you make those decisions, and I've had this situation where I'm managing teams, sometimes the right decision was really not the best thing for my team in terms of maybe their attainment or achieving their goals. But if I felt it was the right thing for the company, I would work towards that decision. So it might be short-term, it can be painful, but long-term, what it brings is that you're seen as a really strategic thinker in your company. You're seen as putting your customers first and your company first versus your own personal objectives. And the way that that played out for me in terms of helping me in my career was when Business Objects was acquired by SAP. And at the time, it was something like the third largest technology acquisition ever in the industry, $7 billion. And there was a lot of unsuccessful acquisitions that had happened. I was asked by our CEO to lead the overall integration of Business Objects into SAP. Now that's a huge undertaking for all of you who've been through integrations. There's things to consider on the product side, the people side, what the sales team does, how you support the customers, who's getting what job. It's massive. And if it's not done well, you don't end up getting really the benefit of the acquisition. And so that gave me a unique opportunity. At the time, I was leading the partner business in Business Objects. Instead of just getting to know other partner people in SAP, I now had the opportunity to get to know executives across the entire organization. All over the world, the executive board, as we call it in SAP. So that gave me a visibility and a profile that would have taken me probably years if I had not been given that opportunity. Now it was a ton of work. It was in addition to the job that I had, and lots of times the best opportunities are in addition to something that we're doing today. But when our CEO came and asked me to do it, he said the reason he wanted me to do it is he felt I had demonstrated that I put the company first. So when I looked at Business Objects and SAP coming together, I wasn't going to be trying to figure out how to protect my team or my colleagues, that I was going to be looking at what was the right decision to make on behalf of the now combined company. So it just brought me an opportunity by going through work the way that I've described that just opened up a lot of doors for me. And I'll talk in a few minutes about how that opportunity led to another role, which is one of the best that I've had in my career. The third one is around communication. And this one I really can't stress enough. And I'm talking about communication one-on-one, or small groups, or presenting to 150 people, or presenting to a few thousand people. It is absolutely one of the fundamental and core abilities that everybody needs to have. You want it to be something that you do extremely well, not something that you are trying to get through or you're trying to get through this presentation. You want it to be really one of your critical strengths. Now, I was quite lucky. My first job out of university was with Xerox. Now, can I ask how many people came from Edmonton, perhaps? Or the prairies in general? Okay, so picture this. This is my first job out of university, and I will admit right up front, I did not do the due diligence up front to totally understand what was involved in this job. I just knew they came on campus, they seemed like a lot of fun, Xerox is a great company, I didn't have to start till September, it was like, oh, this is all good. Took the job. Now I want you to picture Edmonton or any prairie town in the winter, minus 20, minus 30. You had to wear skirts. Back in those days, you didn't even wear pants. Parking your car in an industrial area of the city, getting out and starting to walk through doors going, hi, my name's Janet Wood. I'm from Xerox. I'd like to talk to you about copiers today. I was actually quite shy all through high school, university. Well, I can tell you that you have to figure out your communication skills pretty quickly when you're walking through doors and the first person who looks at you, on their face is, I don't want to see you here today. I don't know why you walked through that door, but just turn around and walk back up. So I had to very quickly really make sure that I had communication skills that were articulate, were concise, I got to the point, you know, that I was able to engage people, and so that was what really helped. One of the things that really helped me. It was one of the toughest jobs I ever had, but in retrospect, one of the best jobs I ever had. One, because it really made me come out of my shell, and two, it really helped me, you know, work on those communication skills. Now, if we think about presenting, I'm lucky that I did inherit from my father at least some comfort in getting up, and natural comfort in getting up in front of groups. But in spite of that, I still do a lot of preparation. And those of you who speak probably do the same if you speak publicly. I have a whole routine I go through, and feel free to come up and talk to me afterwards about what that is. But whether I'm presenting to 20 people or 2,000 people, I do a lot of preparation. So I can tell you this morning at about 10 o'clock, I was standing in my kitchen looking out the window, actually verbally going through this whole thing and rehearsing what I was going to say today. And the bigger the group and the more important the presentation, the more I put into it. It's a huge opportunity because if you're presenting to a group of people, you probably don't know everyone in the audience. And so some people are only going to know you by watching you present. And they're going to decide, did she know her topic? Did she seem knowledgeable? Was she interesting? Was she concise? Was she articulate? They're going to form an impression of you. That's the impression that you want them to walk away with. You don't want them to walk away with an impression of, gee, she looked at her PowerPoints all the time. She seemed uncomfortable or nervous. So I would just encourage you, those are the kinds of things, that's when people can make a difference in your career. They might not know you, but if you're up for a job, they might say, you know, I saw her present, or him present. She looked really good, she looked comfortable, I have a very positive impression. So you want to make communication skills in small or large groups to be one of your core competencies. The fourth is be adaptable and be positive. And I was talking about this with some of the women before we came in for lunch. All of us are in environments where there's a lot of acquisitions going on, there's a lot of consolidation, and so it's very likely at some point in your career, you're either going to suddenly be part of a new company, whether you are the acquirer or the acquiree, or you're going to get a new boss, or they're going to introduce a new system. Change is just accelerating around us, and we all know that. So each of us has a choice in terms of how we react to that change. And what I would recommend, based on what I've seen in my team and what I've seen in my career, is you want to be one of the people who's positive about that change. You want to be one of the people who's adapting very quickly. There's always good and bad things to an acquisition or to change. You want to focus on the positive. You want to help your peers and your team see the positive in it. And I know when I'm looking at my team and we're going through a transformation, one of the things that I really like about the jobs that I've had the last few years is that I've had an opportunity to do some transformation. And I really look at, so who's kind of coming along in this transformation and who's digging their heels into the transformation. And I believe the future leaders in my team are the ones that are helping us get to where we need to go. Because organizations make changes because they need to. They need to stay competitive. The market's changing rapidly. So you want to be a positive force in your company. You want to be someone who's helping your team move forward, helping your team see the positive things of what's happening around them. The last comment I'd make on being positive as well is, and I have seen this happen so many times that I just feel I have to mention it. When I'm mentoring someone and we talk about a senior executive coming in to we call them coffee corners at SAP, or they're coming in to do a round table, that is not the time to put on the table the biggest issue you see in the company so that executive can solve it for you, because they clearly want to know about it. That's the opportunity for you to talk about strategically where the company's going and why you think what they're doing is good, or you've got another idea of a way to make the company successful. It's an opportunity to really show up. Now, if there's an issue you really feel the executive needs to know about, I would just encourage you to also present a potential solution and offer to engage and be part of it. Don't just drop it on the table for them. Surprisingly, I am in meetings all the time with senior executives, and I see people focus on some minor problem that's affecting their part of the business, and that's where they want to spend their very limited time with that senior executive talking about. I would just encourage you to think about how you can come across strategic and positive and supporting the direction of the company. And the last one I comment on is just about careers, so being open and being flexible. So we all have sort of maybe in our mind our career path, and I just would encourage you not to think too rigidly about it. It doesn't need that you go from job A to job B to job C, and I'll give you an example of something that happened in my career. So as a result of leading the overall integration into SAP, I was approached about a year later by a senior leader to take on move in and take on a brand new part of the business that I'd never been involved in. I can assure you I'd never thought about that part of the business. I'd never wished with all my heart to get in that part of the business. What it was is in the software business, a big part of the revenue, typically 50%, comes from maintenance fees. Now, if you have software, if you've got a problem, you phone up someone, fix it, you get new versions sent to you. That's when you pay maintenance to get those services. It's about 50% of most software companies' revenue, and it's a big part of the profit. I had never really paid any attention to that part of the business, which is amazing given how significant it was for SAP, and before that, Business Objects, and before that, Crystal Decisions. But SAP had made some announcements and made some decisions that was putting that revenue at risk. And today, SAP is in the range of $18 billion US. So that's about $9 billion that things were not going perfectly in. So it was a big impact on the company. After I got over the sort of why me, what have I done to go into maintenance, I looked at it and thought, there's ways that I evaluate jobs. First thing is, do I think that I can make a difference? That's what really jazzes me up. And it was clear that there had been some decisions made in SAP that were putting that revenue under pressure, and I felt like, this looks like an opportunity to do something and really have a positive impact. The second is, do I think I'm going to learn something? No question, I knew nothing about that business. So while that was daunting, that to me was also a huge opportunity. And third was, am I going to learn something by doing it? Am I going to like the people that I work with? And so when I looked at it, it kind of hit all of those things, and I would say that I was in that role for about 3 years. That was by far one of the highlights of my career so far in 30 years. I would never have asked to go on that job. I had to really think about it for about I think I had 24 hours to decide to take that job. And it was very rewarding for me. And in the end, I really felt like our team did make a difference to SAP. So just be open. Look at what that job might bring to you, how it's going to add to your resume, whether internal to the company or external. Look at the experience it's going to bring you that may not seem the most logical thing right now, but down the road, it could be something that really makes a difference for you. So to summarize, every one of us is a leader. I want you to really think about that, and don't worry about whether you manage people or not. Just everything you do in your job, view it from a leadership position. Be a strategic thinker. Think about your customers first, whoever they are, your company second, and your team third. Of course, you need to make your personal KPIs, your personal objectives, but try and be someone who's really seen to be putting the customer and the company first. Make communication skills really a core asset, something that you're known to be extremely good at. Be adaptable, be positive, be a positive influence in your company, help the company and your team move forward, and just be flexible about the career choices that you make. So a final comment I'd like to make around diversity. I didn't talk about it a lot in my notes, but I do want to make a comment about it. There's a lot of women in the room, and we all need to really be supportive of each other. I heard Madeleine Albright speak at an event similar to this in New York, and I was talking to Anne, and she's heard her speak as well, and she said exactly the same thing. She talked a lot about her career. By the way, Madeleine Albright, if you don't know her, because I know some folks are a bit younger in the room, she was the Hillary Clinton for Bill Clinton, so she was the Secretary of State. She's about that tall, and I'm not exaggerating. And she did not start her career until she was in her 40s. She didn't go out and work till her kids had left and gone to university. She's an incredibly inspirational woman. She wrapped up her presentation by saying, there's a special place in hell for women who do not support other women. Now you know why she got the job she got. She was incredibly impressive, and while I might not say it exactly the same way, although I just did, I do believe that. And so I would just encourage all of us. Women are underrepresented in boards, in executive positions, in entrepreneur, CEOs of small companies. And we really need to support each other. So I just want to encourage everybody, let's just help all of us collectively and individually get better, be more successful. That's the best thing you can do for your company. So thank you very much.